All right, so let's go ahead and turn not songbooks, in our Bibles to Psalms chapter 23. Now, I've been given bad information. I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, but you've given some information, you just kind of took it as Bible, and I have. And this is one spot that made me really rethink a lot about the Psalms 23. But I've been told sheep are dumb because sheep are kind of dumb. I mean, they are. But they're also very intelligent animals. So, give you an example, and we'll get into this Psalms 23. Sheep are very dumb where they will play follow the leader right off of a cliff. One sheep running full gallop, running away from a predator. One comes off, the other one's right behind in hot pursuit, just keeps on going. They're not very smart in that area. They're not very smart in the area that sometimes they realize that their body needs to rest, and they're just too busy. They're doing their own thing. They're not smart in the aspect as well where if they roll over, they just somehow can't seem to figure out how to roll back over, and their buddies don't even notice, and they're like, well, Bob's going to do what Bob's going to do, and just keep on grazing, and they don't try to help each other out. So many times you look at a sheep, you think this is the dumbest animal, but they're actually very intelligent too. Sheep know somebody by voice. They know many people's voices. So one shepherd, actually, I saw this on YouTube, and it's very interesting. He says, now here's how I call the sheep. And he has them all grazing. And he goes, hey, sheep, or something like that. And he yells out his way and the sheep all turn their heads. But before he does it, he goes, I want you guys to try it. And so all these tourists are out there, sheep! No, nothing. They don't even look. And then one person, sheep! And then the sheep kind of look over and like, oh, that's not him. And then they're back to grazing. But then when the shepherd calls, all the sheep perk up. They know the voice of the shepherd. Sheep are also very good at recognizing people that they know and that they don't know just by sight. They're good at knowing how to go into enclosures. They're very intelligent animals, but they're also kind of dumb. And so when God compares us to sheep, sometimes we think, well, yeah, that's a good analogy, but then it's like, wait a minute, are you saying I'm dumb? And in some cases, we are. Because we make these same mistakes over and over like the sheep does. Well, David, I love this spot, and I've delved into this multiple messages, and I just felt like God was really working on me on this one. It might be a short message today, but we're going to go ahead and start off Psalms chapter 23. And we see right here the first statement, the Lord is my shepherd. Sheep will become attached to the shepherd. And some sheep are more attached to the shepherd than other sheep. And a case in point, a guy was talking, he was a sheep herder, and he's like, this is the sheep I'm going to have to take care of. It was really interesting. The mother sheep did not want anything to do with the baby. Nothing to do with the baby. He tried multiple times, and his baby is just really weak and wobbly legs and just freshly born. And the mama, every time he would try to get milk, you got to feed them right away, or else they're going to just slowly, their body is going to deteriorate. They need that first milk immediately to survive. So the chances of survival have declined if mama doesn't want to nurse them. And so this mom kept headbutting that sheep, and the sheep falls over, and it's resilient. It keeps trying to get up, but the mama just doesn't want to do anything with the sheep, and keeps headbutting the sheep. And so the guy takes the sheep, and he goes, okay, I'm going to see if I can pawn this off to another mama. Sometimes he's lucky, but sometimes he's not. And he said after a while he could just tell, like the body language, he's been around these sheep for a long time. That sheep will not be accepted by any of the mama sheep that are willing to nurse him. So he has to take the sheep. And he has to manually bottle feed that sheep, because that sheep needs all that milk, keeps feeding it. He doesn't get much sleep. He has to be the mama for that sheep. And he was saying that this sheep is going to be the most amount of work. I remember this farmer saying this, he's covered in overalls, covered in mud and everything, and he goes, I almost don't want this sheep, but this is going to be the best sheep. And he says the reason is because he becomes so emotionally attached to me. Everywhere I go, that sheep will want to be next to me. And so, if you look at this spot, David right here, he's saying the Lord is not just a shepherd. It's a possessive. He's my shepherd. He's basically saying, I'm nursed like that little baby lamb that was rejected by everybody, and that is my shepherd. I'm a possessive lamb for the shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, and then he goes even more so to say, I shall not want. Have anybody ever wanted anything? Of course. Man, I want the new Xbox. I want the new PlayStation. Man, I want some new clothes. I want this. You have all these wants, but he's saying, he's not just saying like not just desires, but he's saying, I'm not going to have any need of anything because I have the shepherd. That's what is so interesting about this chapter. The Lord is my shepherd. I have no need of anything. The part right here, he maketh me lie down in green pastures. Now, I've grown up in a very agricultural area, society. I grew up in Washington where everything was green. But there are different green pastures. There are. There's ones that kind of produce hay and alfalfa, and we all know, some of us have grown up in that sort of lifestyle. Not everything is green, but green, I mean just lush grass is so soft. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. You know, when it's just the grass is just, you just lay down, you could make a bed in it. But I got to tell you, some of this grass that animals like to eat is not very soft. I've sat down in some grass that had like little reeds in them, and they poke you and they hurt. They have some, all things that are green don't feel good. I grew up in an area where, it was lush, it was beautiful, but there were some thorns in there. And some of these animals will eat this, and so it's fine. You can bring them in. They've got a palate that can handle chewing up the thistles and chewing up the thorns, but they love the green, the fresh green. And it's just make a bed out of this. So he's saying, not only does he make me lie down, he makes me lie down. This is where you are resting. He forces me sometimes to relax. Sheep, like I mentioned, will sometimes be so stubborn, they'll just want to keep on eating and eating and gorge themselves until they can barely even walk anymore. And sometimes you have to, with these sheep, force them to relax. Sit down. Don't get up and don't keep getting up. Just sit down and relax for a minute. And so that's what he's saying. He makes me, even though I don't want to, he makes me lie down. But not just lie down in the best location, in the greenest pastures. And then he leads me beside the still waters. Still waters, meaning waters of rest. It's a location where it is so calm and peaceful. I almost feel like, if you could imagine, it's a Thomas Kinkade picture. It's not a violent location where lambs can get swept away by the water if they get into it. This is a peaceful location. And so David is saying, God, you are my shepherd. You take care of me, you feed me, you nurture me, you let me lay down in the best of locations. But then it goes even further. He restoreth my soul. Have you ever felt refreshed, so refreshed you're just like, it's a reset? Oh, I mean, you guys ever have those moments, and you probably all have had them, where you took a nap that was so good you thought it was a new day? You guys ever been there before? Oh, you're refreshed, so refreshed, you're like, you wake up and you're thinking, Sunday nap, you're thinking, oh man, whew, is it Monday? Do I need to get ready for work? And you start getting your clothes on and everything. You are so refreshed, you thought it was a new day. He restoreth my soul. I literally am so refreshed when I'm around the shepherd. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. He leads me everywhere I should go, but he doesn't just do it just because it's the right thing. He does it because he's the shepherd. He does it because he's God. And that's what this psalmist is saying. Now here's the spot that I was kind of shocked about. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. See, now, there's an interesting spot. I was doing some commentary, some listening to it, and the people believe the valley that he was referring to was notorious for robbers. So it'd be like the same as the valley that the psalmist is referring to is the same valley that the story of the Samaritan picking up that man that got literally beaten down to just about death. And it's that same valley when you're coming through, where there's all these spots where robbers can sit there and sneak attack you. But the other danger about that valley is also prone to flash floods. We have them out here in Las Vegas, where when there's a torrential downpour, just out of nowhere, all this water comes flying through. I don't know if you've seen too many times where I've seen it, where cars will even get swept away. It's such a violent undertow, and so this area that he's talking about got nicknamed the shadow of death. It was literally a spot that the valley of the shadow of death, it was like you are risking your life to go from point A to point B. This is the fastest route, but it's also the most dangerous. And then he's saying here, as the sheep, yea, though I walk through the valley, that area in the midst of the shadow of death, the area, that gorge, the shadow of death, and if I walk through the valley of that, the worst location, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The interesting thing, God doesn't have us go through these trials and he sits back and he watches us. I kind of remember as a young man, we used to play these, Brother Harry, I see this, he can understand what I've done, where we would play mean tricks with each other. You know what that's like. Brother Cecil, I can see you agreeing too. Us men, we were kind of mean to each other sometimes, where we would say that electric fence doesn't hurt that bad. You know what I'm talking about, right? But we would play these little tricks. Like, now, we knew that it zaps, pulses. You just bzz, 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 and it does the same thing. But what we would tell them, the first one hurts. But after it does, it'll turn the system off. So you can grab the wire the second time. And it was great fun. Because these people, you're like, okay, and they didn't know, because they were country kids, they didn't know cattle life. And so they get zapped and their hand goes a little numb. Oh man, whew, let's try. And they believed me. And then they grab the wire to go lift it up to go underneath, and they get zapped like 3 times in succession. And it was hilarious. And we laughed hysterically. But you see, I didn't say, let me show you. I stood back and I watched them do that decision. But God doesn't do that. You see, when we're going through a trial, God is right there with us. I don't know if you ever heard the story, the poem of the footprints in the sands. You know, when those moments are too tough, they're like, well, God, I see one set of footprints, and he goes, that's why I'm carrying you through the tough time. God is right there beside us. Yea, the Bible says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Now, the sheep have a lot to be afraid of. If we look at the life of David, remember David, he even said that a lion came and attacked, a bear came and attacked. The shepherd's always got to be on guard. He's got to have his sling, he's got to have whatever weapon he can use to protect the sheep and protect himself. And a life of a shepherd is very dangerous work. And it's very thankless work many times as well. And so he's saying, I'm not afraid of the evil because of you. He's saying, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. You know, those things that you could use as a weapon, those are great joy to me. The staff, so many times people talk about it, it is a weapon. It's a large stick, and it will hurt you. And some of these animals that are coming at it, like wolves and such, if they see something in front of them, they just really don't sometimes grasp the discernment of getting around the stick. Sometimes just having that stick right in front of them, whacking them with it, even like a regular dog. If you've seen people defend themselves against dog with a little stick, you're thinking, how in the world is this dog afraid of a stick? But that stick will hurt. And just like I've seen it before, one guy had just a regular walking stick and held off 3 dogs with one stick. He got up on top of a car and just started wailing on the dogs, and first dog he connects with runs away and yelp, yelp, yelp. Didn't kill the dog, but it hurt the dog. Dog's like, I don't want any part of that anymore. Another dog, he hit it, and the dog runs away, and there's just one left, and that dog's like, oh, okay, that didn't look like that was fun. I'm out of here. You know, that stick, it comforts me. I'm glad to know that that's there. It's not so much a thing to scare me away, but it scares those predators away. He's saying, God, the part of you that is used to attack, I relish it and I cherish it because it keeps me safe. Now, he says in verse 5, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. That's one. That's one for the books right there. You see, you can protect me. You can keep me safe. You can do all those things, but then you feed me. And it's essentially saying, I'm not just being fed daily, but the ones that hate me, my enemies, get to see what I'm feasting on because of you. You have those enemies watching me, and then you unload the blessings on me. You're rewarding me in front of my enemies, and they get a chance to see it. I don't know if you've ever had the spot where it's like you want to brag. You're like, oh, man, that was awesome. You know, like those moments where I grew up as the younger brother, and there were moments that I remember my bigger brother kind of got in between me and the bullies. You know, the ones that were rude, and my brother Ben has always been a big guy. But my oldest brother kind of give you a stereotype of who he was. He was the biggest dude in the basketball. He was the line guy. He was the big guy. He was quite a bit older than me, but one thing he liked to do when I was in, like 3rd grade, is he liked to have me sit on his back while he did push-ups because he wanted some resistance. And he would just start going down, doing 100, no issues with me on his back. He's always been very strong. And it was so nice. Yes, it was not fun to be in those hairy situations when people wanted to hurt me, But it was really nice when my older brother came in. And it was like, oh yeah, you go ahead and try it. It's like you want to go ahead and make eyes like, nah, what can you do? Why? Because I've got a protector here. And so this is essentially the same sort of verbiage. He's not only making me a table to eat at, but the enemies get to see it, and they can't do anything about it. God is protecting me, the psalmist is saying. But here's the other part that, of all the verses, this part, I love the analogy the most. Now, some of you people might know this. It's kind of an old terminology, but it's still one that holds true today. Thou anointest my head with oil, the first part of that. And then we'll get to the running, my cup runneth over. When you have the choice of putting something on someone's head in this time period. Now, you could put anything on the head, but you anoint it. So if you're putting ashes, it's a sign of sorrow. But if you're putting oil on the head, that right there that was above and beyond. So when David was anointed king, he had oil get put on his head. And you got to remember this type of lifestyle where they lived outdoors. You get kind of, the rashes, the sun beating down on it. There's nothing better than to have some ointment on that. And he's saying, you love me so much, you could use that ointment for yourself, but you anoint my head with oil. You've given me refreshing. Oh man, it feels so great. I mean, not only do I have all the food I want, all the protection, but you also are nurturing me. And then my cup runneth over. So many times I've read over this and the significance of my cup runneth over, I've not gotten until a couple of years ago. You see, when you serve, we'll just say the drink of choice, coffee, the beverage of the gods. Oh, there's nothing better than coffee. Oh, I love it. It doesn't like me, but I love it. And you take that coffee and you fill it up. Now, what do we do as Americans? If you get a saucer and a cup, you've gone to a fancy restaurant. Normally we just get a little sippy cup, and, like that, and we drive away with it. But in this time period, if you're sitting down at a nice restaurant, that person fills your coffee cup usually right about to that spot at the top. You know what I mean? Just right to the brim. But in this time, that would be the course. That would be what you would do. But the rest is extra. So I'm filling it to the top, and not only is it going to go to the top, it's going to fill that saucer plate. And I'm not just going to give you what you paid for, I'm giving you extra. This is free. And I fill that cup all the way, and it overflows and fills that saucer plate. Now, some of you understand, what do you do in that situation? You drink from this. Did you guys know that you're supposed to drink from the saucer? You guys ever heard that before? It has a really wide section, and so it cools down the drink. And so when you're drinking your coffee, you can actually drink it slightly from the saucer plate. You spill the coffee out, and it goes. I know. I was like, I never realized that before. Mind changed. I was just like, what? And you take that saucer plate and you fill that saucer plate, and you can drink from that, and the coffee doesn't burn you. I'm like, I wish somebody would have told me this. I would have loved to know this. I can't tell you how many times I've taken a coffee and I'm like, well, I'll be having a lisp for the longest time, because I just burned myself so badly. I can't help it. I love coffee and I just start to chug it. Man, that would have been good information. But you know what the psalmist is saying? You have not just given me what I've requested. You didn't just give me a tea or a coffee. You've filled my drink so much that it's gone up and over the brim onto that saucer plate. You've filled it abundantly. You've taken care of me more than I could imagine. And so if you like somebody and you go to fill their coffee mug next time, just let it go up and over and say, Brother Jason said. Now, I wouldn't recommend, don't do that. Don't blame it on me. But that was something that you could do to show somebody, I value you. I'm giving you extra than what you requested. And so he's saying, you don't just give me what I need, you put oil on my head. You make my cup fill over into that saucer plate. You give me more than I could ever imagine. And so the psalmist concludes, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. Now, I want to explain something here really quickly. Let me actually do that here at this conclusion. He says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. All of this goodness that you've extended to me is going to follow me all the days of my life. But now here's the next part. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You don't let sheep into the house of the Lord. You see, you don't let animals, filthy animals, into the house of the Lord. And this is where he's going from sheep to human. He's saying, I'm using this sheep analogy, but God, you love me so much. I am so thankful that I want to be next to you all my days. You know, if you look at David, God just had a heart. With David, David had such a heart for God. Such a heart to please God. I mean, yes, David did some bad stuff, but he always had a love for God. And he's telling God, because of your love to me, I cannot get enough of you, and I want to live in your house. I want to dwell in the house, and he says, of the Lord, meaning I want to live with God. I want to be next to God. I cannot get enough of God. I want to be with him forever. See, in this spot right here, we notice something. David calls himself a sheep. We notice that David doesn't choose any other animal. He doesn't choose a lion. He doesn't choose anything else like an ox, a donkey. He chooses a sheep. Something that literally the animal is incredibly dependent on that shepherd. You realize sheep can live in the wild, but only for a few years. That animal in the wild will die without the shepherd. You know, the one thing it's interesting, there's multiple animals that are like this, that are impossible. Evolutionists say, well, here's all these signs of animals that have evolved over time. But sheep, one animal that is impossible to live by itself. Because of the way it grows its hair and everything, it's got to shape. If it doesn't, it will die. It's completely dependent on the shepherd. Because I've got to get that trim, I've got to lose that layer of clothing, because if I don't, I'm going to overheat. This animal's going to die from not losing its coat during the summertime. But then also, it's going to get all these nasty infections from all these other little critters that'll live inside its coat. And so it's got to lose that so it can kind of heal. And then its coat's going to grow back in the wintertime, and it's just going to repeat the cycle. Sheep are completely dependent on the shepherd. You don't see random hordes of sheep that just run around, and they've got to be with the shepherd. Dogs attack sheep. Out in this area of the world at this time, dogs were not a common staple in households. Dogs were considered disgusting, filthy animals. And so As a Jewish person, you wouldn't let the dog into the house. You might have an animal outside that you had somewhat domesticated, but it was still a wild animal. And so this animal is something that would attack a sheep. Dogs will attack. Another animal is like we obviously saw with David, with the story of Goliath and slaying the giant. He talked about being a shepherd, and he says, I've killed the lion and the bear as a shepherd. He didn't have, if I was a shepherd, my weapon of choice would probably be a rifle. I don't want to run after a large animal with a rock. But David was the protector. And he uses this spot, and he understands it very well, being a shepherd, that we are dependent on the shepherd. David, he's like, I could get on my own power. I might be able to live a couple of days, maybe a week if I'm lucky. But if I don't have a connection with my shepherd, I'm a wandering sheep. You see, David, he had moments where he had to look for the lost sheep. You see, sheep, I kind of feel like this a good analogy, but you don't even know him, was my best friend growing up. He's a very smart guy, but he had his moments where he was not very smart. And you know how some friends, you probably have had them, where they just stare off into the existence. And there's nothing going on, and they're in their own little world, just staring. You could break me out of a trance fairly easy. I would be in those moments. And most of us guys were in those moments, dreaming about sword fighting and, we're like, war, and we're just like, oh. We're off in our own little world, and your mom's like, hey, come here, hello, trying to get your attention, anything, but you're gone. Well, this guy, I remember, Nathan, and I'm not embellishing this story at all. I've told my wife this story as well. We were dropping him off at his house, and Nathan was just he's sitting in the car, just staring out into the window, just in his own thought. And my mom, I remember her, parks the car, the van, puts it in park, and says, don't say anything. I want to see how long he'll sit here. And we were just kind of like snickering and laughing, looking at Nathan. He's just staring out the window for like a good 5 minutes. And they finally like, oh, we're here. Sheep can do that too. Sheep can do that same sort of thing too. When they start having something they like. You ever have some food that's really good? Okay. You can tell. Exhibit A. Yes, I have. Oh man, I've had some food that was just like, oh, you're taking a bite and it's just like, angels start fluttering around and everything. It's just so good. And then you look up and then there's like, where did my wife go? She was sitting here a few minutes, but this food was so good. Oh, wow. And so that's where sheep can be at the same thing too. They can be eating, having the time of their life. Oh, this grass is so, oh yeah. And they're chewing away, and they look up and they're like, where is everyone? And then they're like, well, almost like a child. They don't think and look and see, well, all the grass is kind of stampeded this way. My friends must be there. No, sheep are kind of dumb. This is the moment that people are saying, oh, sheep are smart and intelligent. I'm like, you haven't seen a sheep. They're pretty dumb. They'll be eating and chewing away, and then everybody's gone except them. And what do? Oh, no. And almost like a child in a store, Mama! And they're running around and everything. And they're just running. They don't know where to run. They're going anywhere and everywhere, just trying to find the flock. And they're usually running the opposite direction. Sheep are not smart. But people say they are. You see, the moment that this animal becomes, quote unquote, intelligent is when the animal realizes its dependency on the shepherd. I got to tell you, I hate to say this, But David picked a perfect animal for us Christians. We're smart, but we're pretty dumb. Say, Brother Jason, you're offending me. Calling me a dumb Christian. Oh, I'm with every finger I'm pointing at you, I'm pointing right back at me. I'm pretty dumb. You know, I have moments where that shepherd, I want to be with the shepherd. I want to be such a relationship with God where I feel like I've just got such a connection, but look at that sin. And I go running to that sin, and I distance myself from the shepherd. God didn't distance himself from me. I walked away from the shepherd. Oh, look at this little sin right here. Oh, this looks fun. And I distance myself more from the shepherd. And then I finally have these moments of clarity. Life was a little bit better than where I am right now. I need to get back to the safety of the shepherd. See, God never changed his position. He's still the shepherd. But I changed my position as the sheep. You see, David knows and realizes this. He's had time and time again where he's made some stupid decisions. And he realizes the only time I'm safe is as the sheep being close to the shepherd. You might have something going on in your life, and I don't know what it is. Trust me, Pastor and I, we've not sat in that back room and let me tell you about this member, blah, blah, blah. No, Pastor hasn't done that with me. We don't discuss anything like that. But you know, maybe if there's something in your life that maybe God's touching on this with you about, I would challenge you to talk to God about it. You just be in prayer. God, do I need to remove something out of my life that's pulling me away from you? Do I need to maybe add more to my life, add more scripture reading, add more time in prayer with you? Is that what you want? Maybe it's friends that are pulling you away. You know, Pastor and I were even talking about this, how the Bible even talks about how there will be sheep in wolves' clothing. Or sorry, wolves in sheep's clothing, sorry. Now, that's an analogy. Why would a sheep want to do that? Hey, check out this. No, there are going to be times when there are wolves trying to get into the flock. There's going to be times. There are going to be people that are going to profess them, I have the biggest walk with God. I am the nicest. And they are the ones that are going to scatter the flock. How are you with God? Are you aligning yourself with Christ? Are you like this psalmist, addicted to the presence of Jesus? So much so that he says, that's the one that truly loves me. Or are you like the other sheep that say, I don't care what that shepherd wants. I want to do what I want to do. I got to tell you, that shepherd will constantly come back after those sheep. He will, because he loves the sheep. And God is the true shepherd. And he says that he gives his life for the sheep. Jesus gave his life on a cross almost 2,000 years ago for us, the sheep. Are we going to say, God, hands off the sheep? Or are we going to say, God, it's my life, and I'm freely giving it to you? God, whatever you want with this sheep, you can use me. Would I challenge you today, as a sheep, surrender your life to Christ? What I challenge you today is, if there's anything that's pulling you away from the shepherd, surrender it on this altar tonight. Give it to Christ. He will not disappoint you. Let's go ahead and pray. Lord God, thank you so much for being the shepherd. You've even announced in your word that you are the good shepherd and you give your life for the sheep. And Lord, you gave your life to us. And Lord, we ask you right now, Lord, that you would just continue protecting us. Lord, keep us safe. But Lord, keep us desiring you. Lord, just keep us in the spot where we're at, where we need and cannot get enough of you. And Lord, I pray, God, that you would just, as the good shepherd you will just deal with us, sometimes the disobedient sheep, to keep us in your perfect will. And Lord, we give you all the praise and the honor and glory alone, because you deserve it all. In Jesus' name we ask.